The casserole was still warm on the table, untouched. My son's wife, Alyssa, scrolled on her phone with one hand, swirling her wine with the other. Across from her, my son, Jacob, looked at me like I was a number, a cost, a weight on his back he could no longer carry. "I just can't feed you, Mom," he said. The words sliced through the silence harder than any scream could. The fork in my hand paused mid-air, trembling slightly. I stared at him, not because I didn't hear, but because I did, and my mind refused to believe it. I had buried my husband just 2 weeks earlier. We were married for 37 years. I was still wearing black. I still woke up reaching for the other side of the bed. And now, my only son, my boy, the one I breastfed rocked to sleep, protected from fevers and heartbreaks, was telling me I was too much, too expensive, too inconvenient, too alive. Alyssa didn't look up from her glass. "She could work, Jacob. That's what my mom did when my dad passed." He didn't even flinch. Exactly. I was still frozen in place, my mouth dry, my heart burning cold. "I found you something, Mom," Jacob continued, pulling out a piece of paper from his jacket pocket and sliding it across the table like a waiter handing a receipt. "The cafe near the highway, they're hiring dish staff. Nothing stressful. Just evenings." I blinked at the paper. A job listing, minimum wage, 6-hour shifts. I was 64. I smiled and agreed. Yes, that's what I did. I smiled. I said thank you. I pretended like I appreciated the opportunity, like it wasn't the emotional equivalent of being kicked off a cliff. Then I excused myself. I stood from the table, kissed him on the forehead like he was still 6, and said, "Thank you for thinking of me, sweetheart." But inside, a storm had begun to swirl. Before I dive in, feel free to let me know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy the story, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. That night, I packed only one small bag. Not out of pettiness, but out of clarity. I realized that this house, his house, was not my home. I'd spent the last few years helping them raise their daughter, cleaning the kitchen, folding their laundry, even paying for half of their down payment from my late husband's life insurance. But now, I was another mouth to feed. I disappeared before the sun rose. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't leave a note. The front door closed as softly as my heart did, and Jacob? He didn't call. Not that day, not the day after, not even a week later. He must have assumed I was at the cafe. He must have believed his fragile mother was scrubbing dishes while his daughter played with toys I bought, under a roof I partially paid for. But I didn't go to the cafe. I didn't scrub a single dish. Because what Jacob didn't know was this. The week after my husband died, I discovered something in our joint safety deposit box. A name, an account, a second will, signed, sealed, and entirely unknown to Jacob. 3 months passed, then came a message. From Jacob. 1:17 p.m. "Mom, I don't know what's going on, but the cafe said you never work today. Are you okay?" I stared at the message on my tablet, seated in a quiet private lounge thousands of miles away. I took a sip of tea and smiled. He was beginning to realize. Flashback. A week after the funeral, my husband's lawyer, Charles, had called me in for a private meeting. "There's something you should see," he said, placing a red folder on the mahogany table. Something Robert didn't want shared until after his death. I opened it. And everything I thought I knew about our finances shifted. Stock certificates, silent ownership documents, land deeds from before we were married. It wasn't just a little inheritance. It was $4.7 million stored across accounts Jacob knew nothing about. "Robert wanted you to have full control," Charles said, "in case Jacob ever—" He paused, choosing his words. Changed. And Jacob had changed. That night at dinner proved it. I didn't respond to his message. I wanted him to sit in it, to wonder, to feel the absence of the woman who once did everything and now did nothing. The next message came a day later. Please just let me know you're safe. We're all worried. We? His wife once said I wore funeral clothes like a martyr. She once rolled her eyes when I asked if I could turn up the thermostat. Now they were worried? Still, I didn't respond, because it wasn't time yet. Alyssa's birthday came. I watched the Instagram photos roll in, rooftop cocktails, champagne bottles, luxury bags. I recognized the handbag. It was mine. I left it behind when I disappeared. She captioned the photo, deserved. Jacob commented, only the best for my queen. I took a screenshot. That would come in handy later. 2 weeks later, the city assessor flagged a property transfer. Their house. The mortgage had defaulted. Jacob called 5 times in one evening. When I picked up the 6th time, I didn't say hello. I simply asked, did the cafe ever call you for a dishwashing job? Silence. Mum? Yes, Jacob. What's going on? I smiled. Everything's changed. And then came the knock at my door. The knock wasn't frantic. Not at first, just 3 firm taps. I didn't rush to the door. I watched through the security cam on my phone instead. Jacob stood there alone, wearing the same navy coat he used to wear when we'd go to Sunday brunch together. He looked smaller somehow, like someone had taken out all his confidence and replaced it with questions. I didn't open it right away. I wanted him to wait, to wonder, to remember what silence felt like. Another knock, this time louder. Mum, are you in there? I stepped closer but didn't answer. He pressed his hand to the door and leaned in. I just need to see you, please. Alyssa was nowhere in sight. That told me more than his words. Finally, I opened it. Slowly. He flinched when he saw me, like I'd come back from the dead. Hi, Jacob. His mouth parted, but he didn't speak for a few seconds. He was scanning me, my hair pulled back neatly, a soft silk robe, fresh orchids behind me, and the subtle scent of vanilla in the air. You're here? You were expecting the cafe? His eyes dropped. I don't understand. I know. I turned and walked back inside, leaving the door open behind me. It took him a moment to follow. When he stepped in, his eyes roamed across the polished marble floors, the glass chandelier above, the calm piano music playing in the background. This isn't a hotel, he said softly. No, it's mine. He blinked. I bought it last month. Cash, no mortgage. He stood frozen like a boy caught stealing cookies, staring at me like he had no clue who I was. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. I poured myself a glass of lemon water. You told me you couldn't feed me. You gave me a dishwashing job. What would have been the point of telling you? His mouth opened and closed. That wasn't... I didn't mean it like that. You said it exactly like that. He dropped onto the velvet armchair, looking like someone had just pulled the rug out from under his whole life. Alyssa said you vanished. We thought maybe... Something happened to me? He nodded slowly. I took a seat across from him. Oh, something did happen, I said. I woke up. Flashback. The night I left. After Jacob gave me the job paper, I sat awake for hours in the guest room. Alyssa's laughter echoed from their bedroom. I stared at the ceiling, hearing their refrigerator hum, the soft clink of the dryer door closing. Then I saw it, my husband's wedding band on the nightstand. I'd removed it before a shower days earlier, but that night it sparkled under the moonlight. I picked it up, held it to my chest and whispered, I'll live for me now. I left without a word, and I never looked back. I gave you everything, I told Jacob now. Help with your mortgage, childcare, groceries, even silence when Alyssa made jabs about how I hovered. But the second I became inconvenient, your hands shook at the dinner table just thinking about the bill. His eyes welled. I didn't mean to hurt you. You did anyway. He looked around the room again, at the towering bookshelves and the sunlight pouring in through tall windows. How? He finally asked. How is any of this possible? I stood up, walked over to a drawer, and pulled out a folder. Then I handed it to him. Inside were documents, ownership records, an investment portfolio. And at the top, a handwritten note. If Jacob ever forgets who you are, this will remind you who you are. Robert. He read it in silence. His hands trembled. I didn't know Dad had all this. Neither did you know how cruel you could be. And yet, I left the sentence unfinished. Let him sit in it. Suddenly his voice cracked. Alyssa left. I raised an eyebrow. She found out about the foreclosure, blamed me, said I was weak, said I let it all fall apart. She's not wrong. He winced. I just wanted to protect my family. From what? The burden of loving me? Silence again. For the first time, I saw something in him I hadn't seen in years. Shame, real, heavy, undeniable shame. I stood. I'm not here to punish you, Jacob, but I'm also not here to save you. He looked up at me like a drowning man spotting land. Please, I need help. I messed up. I nodded. Yes, you did. He stood slowly. What do I do now? I walked over, placing a hand on his shoulder. You start by walking out that door. You go back to the life you chose. And when you're ready to do better, not for help, but for redemption, you know where the doorbell is. He looked at me, crushed, and I gently closed the door behind him. That night, I stood by the window. Across the street, a black car idled. It had been there for 20 minutes. I narrowed my eyes, and then the back door opened. It wasn't Jacob. It was someone else. Someone I hadn't seen in years. Someone who should have been gone. I didn't move at first. I just stared from the window, the condensation from my tea drifting upward in delicate curls as the car door opened. My breath caught when she stepped out. High heels, leather gloves, hair pulled into a tight silver bun that hadn't changed in over 2 decades. She looked the same. Cold, precise, composed. My late husband's sister. Marjorie. She was supposed to be in Italy, managing a vineyard she inherited from their parents. I hadn't spoken to her since the funeral. She didn't even sit in the family row. She arrived late, left early. No words. Just air kisses and an eye roll when I read my husband's eulogy. Now she was here. In front of my house. She raised her chin and looked up directly at the window, as if she knew I was watching. I stepped away from the curtain. My heart pounded once, twice, then settled into a low hum of dread. A knock came, 3 firm taps, just like Jacob's, but heavier, more deliberate, like she wasn't asking for entry. She was announcing herself. I didn't open the door. Instead, I asked through the intercom, Marjorie, what do you want? Her voice came through smooth as chilled wine. I want to talk, face to face, like family. I should have shut her out. I should have ignored her. But my gut told me something bigger was coming, so I opened the door. She stepped in like she still owned every room she entered. Her heels clicked against the tile. Her eyes scanned the decor like she was evaluating an auction house. And then, without waiting, she sat. I remained standing. She smiled, still fake, still sharp. Nice place, she said. I know. She chuckled. There was no warmth in it. Then she pulled out an envelope from her handbag and placed it gently on the table. What's this? Your husband's mistake. I didn't move. She leaned forward. You think you know everything, don't you? The accounts, the stocks, the backup will, the house you now own. I didn't flinch. But Robert didn't tell you everything. Now I stepped closer. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened the envelope. Inside was a deed to a piece of land I'd never seen, signed by Robert, and transferred, not to me, but to Marjorie. I looked up. This isn't possible. It is, and it's real, and now that he's dead, I'm exercising my rights. I narrowed my eyes. You waited until now? She shrugged. Timing is everything. Flashback. 20 years earlier. Robert and Marjorie argued for hours in the garage. I never knew what it was about. I only remember what he said after she slammed the door behind her and vanished into the night. She won't win, not this time. I asked what it meant. He kissed my forehead and said, "Don't worry, love. I've taken care of it." I thought he revoked this, I whispered, staring at the paper. He didn't, she said. He just hoped you'd never see it. But once Jacob called me crying about foreclosure and how you abandoned him. She smiled wider. I knew the time was right. You two spoke? He asked for help, so I'm here. I was silent. She leaned in. You think you're clever. You disappeared and let your son fall apart. But you forget. Revenge has a long memory, and I don't forget. I clenched my jaw. Neither do I. She stood up. See you in court. And just like that, she was gone. The house felt cold after she left. I sat alone for hours, staring at that deed. Robert had betrayed me, or protected me. I didn't know which yet. But one thing was certain. If Marjorie thought I'd crumble, she was wrong. I made a call. To Charles, my husband's lawyer. I read him the document. He was quiet for a long moment, then said, I need to show you something. Come to my office. Now. The ride downtown was quiet. I sat in the back of the car, watching the city pass like static in a memory. My pulse was steady. My mind was a battlefield. When I reached Charles's office, he greeted me at the door, eyes wide. I didn't think she'd go this far, he said. She said she owns it now. He held up a USB stick. She doesn't. But she thinks she does. He plugged it into his laptop. On screen popped an old scanned document. My husband's signature, Marjorie's signature. A transfer. But then, Charles clicked again. Another document appeared, dated 3 years later. Same land. Returned to Robert. Voluntary surrender of rights. Signed, witnessed, stamped. She gave it back, I asked. Charles nodded, out of guilt or pressure, but she did. So why would she lie now? He looked at me grimly. Because she thinks you don't know. I stood. A strange calm washed over me. She thought I'd crumble, but she forgot who she was dealing with. That night I sent Marjorie a single message. See you at brunch instead. I'll bring the original deed. Wear pearls. No reply. But I knew she read it. And I knew she wouldn't go quietly. Because people like Marjorie never do. The next morning, I went to my garden to clear my head. And that's when I noticed. The gate was open. The flowers trampled. And a white envelope sitting on the bench. Inside, a photo of my granddaughter walking home from school, alone. My hands clenched around the photo. My knuckles whitened. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, drowning out the chirping birds and rustling leaves of my morning garden. It was my granddaughter, Emma, just 8 years old. Her backpack was slung over one shoulder, her pigtails swung gently, her pink sneakers, the ones I bought her, scuffed on the pavement. The photo was taken from across the street, too far for her to notice, but close enough that whoever took it had followed her, watched her. My stomach twisted. A warning. A threat. This wasn't business anymore. This was blood. I stormed back into the house, locked the doors, closed the blinds and went straight to the safe. The original deed. The lawyer's documents. The USB with the scans. All still there. But it wasn't about the land anymore. Marjorie wanted fear. She wanted me frozen. She wanted control. I took a slow breath. Then I picked up the phone. Charles, I said, voice trembling but sharp. She's crossed a line. What happened? She followed my granddaughter. She left a photo. In my garden. Silence. Call the police, he said. But I shook my head. No, not yet. Why not? Because the police will ask questions. And if they question Marjorie too soon, she'll panic. We don't need panic. We need proof. There was a pause on the line. Then he whispered, You're serious. I've never been more serious. Flashback. A decade ago, Marjorie stood in our kitchen sipping brandy. I would have made Robert more money, she said, eyeing me over the rim of her glass. I laughed bitterly. He didn't marry you for profit, she smirked. No, he married the safe choice. But don't forget who helped him buy that land. Don't forget whose contacts opened doors for him. You mean your ex-husband's trust fund? She stiffened. Careful, dear. I leaned in. I'm always careful. She left that night without saying goodbye, and I knew then we weren't sisters-in-law. We were Cold War enemies. That night I installed 3 new cameras, one pointed at the street, one at the gate, one by the garden path. I texted Jacob and told him to change Emma's pickup schedule, double the security, no more solo walks. I didn't tell him why. He didn't deserve to know yet. Not until I was sure he wouldn't mess it up. Then I went to my study and pulled out an old folder marked Bistro Holdings. It was the name of the shell company Robert used to buy the land Marjorie wanted. But here's the twist. What Marjorie didn't know was that the land itself had changed value, dramatically. What once was a barren plot near the city outskirts had become a gold mine. A tech hub had been approved nearby. Data centres, warehouses, infrastructure. The value had skyrocketed to nearly $12 million. That's why she returned. It wasn't revenge. It was greed. The next day, I booked an appointment with the city registrar. I needed to make one change on the ownership file, not the deed itself, but the beneficiary clause, just in case. It took 2 hours, a few signatures, a notary. And now, if anything happened to me, Marjorie would get nothing, but Jacob would get nothing too. It all went to Emma. Later that evening, I walked to the mailbox at the edge of the property. Inside was a small square box, no return address. I opened it slowly. Inside was a silver key and a tiny note. Unit 302, 7 p.m. Come alone. I recognized the handwriting. Marjorie. She was pulling me into a game. But what she didn't know, I'd already started playing mine. I didn't tell Charles. I didn't tell anyone. I dressed carefully that evening, plain, quiet colours, comfortable shoes, no jewellery, and in my purse a voice recorder, a mini GPS tracker and pepper spray. Unit 302 was in a downtown business suite, abandoned, dusty, dimly lit, a single chair and table in the centre, a lamp overhead, and Marjorie, standing at the window, looking out over the city. You came, she said, not turning around. I'm not afraid of you, I replied. You should be. She turned now, slow and theatrical. You're meddling, sister. You should have taken your little house, your little piece, and vanished quietly. I did vanish. You're the one that followed. She stepped closer. I just want what I'm owed. You're owed nothing. Oh, I think I am, and if you keep pushing, I'll make sure Jacob pays the price too. My eyes narrowed. He already has. She smiled. Then her hand slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos. Me, entering Charles's office. Me, holding the deed. Me, with the notary. She'd been watching, recording, building a case. You've been busy, I said. She grinned. So have you, but I play long games. Then play this, I whispered, placing the recorder on the table and pressing play. Her voice echoed back. I would have made Robert more money. Then, he married the safe choice. Then, you should be afraid. She froze. The air crackled. You were recording me. I smiled. I've been recording since Jacob called me crying. She lunged for the recorder, but I grabbed it first. You wanted to threaten a child? Follow an 8-year-old? Congratulations, Marjorie. That's now part of a federal investigation. Her face turned pale. You wouldn't... I stepped closer. I would. As I walked out of that building, I didn't look back. Not at the broken woman, not at the photos, not at the silence, but when I got to the street, my car was gone. In its place, a black SUV, windows tinted, engine running, and in the front seat, Jacob. His face was pale, his hands on the steering wheel, and in the passenger seat, Emma, sleeping. Jacob didn't move as I stepped onto the curb. The black SUV idled under the street lamp, humming softly like a warning in the dark. I walked slowly toward them, my heels silent against the pavement. My eyes stayed fixed on Emma. Her little face turned peacefully against the seatbelt, a stuffed bunny clutched in her arms. I opened the door gently. He looked up at me. "Get in," he whispered. I slid into the back seat, closed the door. The lock clicked. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice cracked. I didn't know what else to do. I looked at him through the rearview mirror. "What are you talking about?" He gripped the steering wheel like he wanted to crush it. "I didn't just call Marjorie because we were losing the house. I called her weeks before that." My stomach dropped. He continued. "She offered help, said she could fix everything. But she needed me to tell her about your finances, where you were, what lawyer you used. I gave her everything, Mum." My chest tightened. "You what?" He turned around in the seat, his eyes red. "I thought you were punishing me for the cafe job thing. I thought you disappeared just to teach me a lesson. And I panicked. Emma was scared. Alyssa was angry. I felt like I was drowning. So you gave her the gun to shoot me with?" He nodded slowly. "She told me. She said if I helped her, she'd make sure Emma was taken care of no matter what happened, that she had money, connections, that she could erase the debt." He reached into the glove box and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside were checks from Marjorie. Dozens, signed, staggered in amount, spread across dates over the past month. "She paid you," he nodded. "To betray you." My fingers shook as I stared at the ink. "You were in on it the whole time." His voice cracked again. "At first. But then, when I saw you again, when you opened that door, I realized you didn't just vanish. You evolved," he whispered. "You came back stronger." Flashback. Me. Age 29. Robert and I sat under a tree with baby Jacob in my arms. He was pink and soft and crying. I was exhausted. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to raise a child," I had said. Robert kissed my forehead and replied, "You'll raise a kingdom, not just a child." I looked at Jacob now. My son. My failure. My lesson. "I don't need your apology," I whispered. "I need your silence." He blinked. "What?" I leaned in, my voice like ice. "You are not to tell Marjorie anything else. You are not to warn her. You are not to step in." He nodded, defeated. "And when this is over," I added, "you will step out of Emma's inheritance, permanently." He swallowed hard. "But she's my daughter. She's mine now." His eyes burned, but he didn't argue. That night I met Charles again. We walked into the courthouse at sunrise, our files in hand, a quiet force moving through polished marble halls. We didn't press criminal charges, not yet. We pressed civil injunctions. We froze all assets connected to Marjorie. We submitted surveillance evidence. We submitted the photo of Emma. We submitted the audio recordings. We included every payment to Jacob. The judge didn't need time. She signed the freeze order immediately. Marjorie's accounts went dark before her morning espresso. Her lawyers called by noon. Her publicist resigned by 4 p.m. By 6 p.m, she stood outside my gate in the rain. No umbrella, no fury, just quiet. She held the same photo of Emma, now smeared from tears. "I didn't mean to scare her," she said softly. I stepped outside, stood at the edge of the porch. "You didn't scare her. You scared me. And that was your mistake." She trembled. "What do you want?" I stepped forward. "Nothing." "Then why?" Because I don't take from children. You do. I don't blackmail widows. You do. I don't erase people's dignity. You do. She nodded, ashamed, soaked. I'll leave the city, she whispered. No, you'll stay. You'll live in what you built. You'll feel the cold in every bank rejection, in every closed door, in every empty invitation. Her eyes welled. Goodbye, Marjorie. And I closed the door. 2 weeks passed. Jacob moved into a modest apartment. He started therapy. He sent me a handwritten letter. It sat unopened on my desk. Emma visited me every weekend. She painted my garden wall with sunflowers and wrote little poems in chalk on the stones. Charles helped me set up a scholarship fund in her name. One evening I took her to the beach. She looked up at me and asked, "Grandma, are we going to be okay?" I knelt down, hugged her tightly. We already are, baby. Epilogue. The cafe Jacob found for me, I bought it last month, renovated it, reopened it under a new name. Widow's Wake. People ask if it's a place for grieving. It's not. It's a place for rebirth, and every cup of coffee served comes with a quiet truth written on the napkin. Sometimes the best revenge is remembering who you are.